The laughter around the table dimmed into a blur as my eyes fixed on him. The man standing at the doorway wasn't a stranger. He was Daniel Dutt, the same Daniel who once promised me forever, then left without warning, taking more than just my heart when he walked away. He looked almost exactly as I remembered. That same calm confidence in his eyes. The polite smile, the tailored shirt that said he always cared about appearances. But tonight, he wasn't my boyfriend. He was my sister's fiancé, everyone, my mother said, beaming with pride. This is Daniel, the man who finally convinced our Lily to settle down. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear the rest. Lily reached for his hand, glowing with the soft excitement of someone in love. She looked so happy. And in that instant, I felt a strange mix of nausea and guilt, like I was intruding on a happiness I once knew, a happiness I no longer owned. He met my eyes for just a second, a flicker recognition, then panic. He masked it quickly with that charming smile I once fell for. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The room spun with polite chatter. Mom asking about wedding dates. Dad pouring wine, Lily teasing Daniel about his proposal speech. Meanwhile, I sat there, frozen, clutching the edge of my napkin until my knuckles turned white. When Mom turned to me, her voice broke through my haze. Emma, you're awfully quiet tonight. You okay, sweetheart? I forced a smile. Just tired from work. Daniel's lips curved ever so slightly, as if testing how much I'd reveal. That's when I realized he wasn't going to say a word. He wasn't going to tell anyone that we had a past, that I once wore the same necklace Lily now had on, the one he must have gifted again. Without even remembering it wasn't new. I wanted to scream, but instead, I smiled. Because that's what good daughters do. That's what big sisters do. They protect their family even when their world is collapsing inside. Before that night, things were simple. I worked as a teacher at a small community school, lived in a quiet apartment not far from my parents, and spent most weekends at their house helping Mom with her garden or teasing Lily about her latest dating adventures. Lily was the sunshine of our family, the youngest, the dreamer, the one who somehow never lost her spark. She was always the baby. Even if I was calm and careful, she was spontaneous and bright. When she told me she'd met someone different, someone who made her feel safe, I'd been happy for her, genuinely happy. After all, I'd been through my share of heartbreaks. If anyone deserved something steady, it was her. I remember that phone call clearly. His name's Daniel, she said, excitement bubbling through her words. You'll love him, Em. He's kind, respectful, grounded, not like the usual guys. Sounds perfect, I'd replied with a soft laugh. When do I get to meet him? Soon, she said. When it's official. That was 3 months ago. I hadn't thought twice about the name. Daniel was common enough. I never imagined it could be him. That night, after dinner, I drove home in silence. The city lights blurred through the windshield as I replayed every moment. The way he looked at her, the way he avoided my gaze, and that necklace. The same one. When I got home, I sat on my couch, shoes still on, staring into nothing. I'd moved on, or at least I thought I had. It had been 5 years since he walked out of my life. 5 years since I came home one evening to an empty apartment, his things gone, his number disconnected, leaving only a note that said, I'm sorry. It's better this way. I never got closure. I spent months wondering what I'd done wrong, blaming myself, questioning everything. Eventually, I stopped talking about him altogether. My family never knew his name. I'd only said, it didn't work out. And now, here he was, back, as if the universe was testing how much pain one heart could quietly endure. The next morning, Lily called, her voice bright and full of excitement. So, what do you think of him? I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the counter. He seemed nice, just nice. She laughed. Come on, Em, you're the best judge of character in the family. I need your approval. Approval. The word stung. I pictured her face that night, glowing with love, trusting him completely. How could I tell her that the man she adored once shattered me? How could I destroy her dream just to soothe my own wound? So I said the only thing I could, if he makes you happy, that's what matters. She sighed softly, content. He really does. I think he's the one, M, for real this time. My throat tightened, because once upon a time, I'd said the same words about him. Days turned into weeks, and I did what I've always done best. I buried the pain beneath routine. I showed up for work, smiled for my students, even helped Lily with wedding ideas when she asked. But every time she mentioned his name, something twisted in my chest. The secret was poisoning me from the inside out. I told myself maybe I could live with it. Maybe I could pretend. After all, people change. Maybe he'd change too. Until one afternoon, I met them again together. And this time, I saw something that made my blood run cold. It was a small thing, just a look, a gesture, something no one else would have noticed. But to me, it was enough to shatter the fragile peace I'd been clinging to. Because that look told me one thing clearly. Daniel hadn't changed at all. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Lily had invited me to join her and Daniel for lunch at a small cafe near the harbor. One of those cozy spots where the scent of roasted coffee lingers in the air and seagulls hover above the patio, waiting for crumbs. I almost said no, but she sounded so excited, and I didn't want to raise suspicion. So I went, makeup light, hair tied back, smile rehearsed. They were already seated when I arrived. Lily waved me over, her arm hooked through Daniel's. He stood up, ever the gentleman, and pulled out a chair for me. "Emma," he said softly, that smooth voice still painfully familiar. "It's good to see you again." I met his gaze. "You too." For a moment, we both held that polite silence, the kind that hides a storm beneath it. Then Lily began chatting about wedding venues, blissfully unaware of the quiet tension building between us. The sunlight caught her engagement ring, and I couldn't help noticing it looked identical to the one he gave me years ago. A simple gold band with a single diamond. Not flashy, but personal. I used to love that about him, how he said simplicity was eternal. I felt my breath hitch. He wouldn't, would he? Use the same design, the same words, the same gestures. As Lily reached for his hand, I caught his eyes again, and that time, I saw something different. Guilt. After lunch, Lily went inside to pay the bill. I didn't want to be alone with him, but fate or maybe punishment had other plans. Daniel cleared his throat. "You look well, Emma. Teaching suits you." I froze. He remembered. I hadn't told Lily what I did for work, but of course, he knew. "Don't," I said quietly. He looked down, fiddling with his napkin. "I never meant for this to happen." My voice trembled. "You mean showing up in my family's life like this?" His eyes lifted to mine, those same calm brown eyes that once lied so is. "I didn't know she was your sister." He said, "Not until after we've been together for months." I wanted to believe him, but my heart refused. "How convenient," I whispered. "You vanished from my life without a word, and now you show up as my sister's fiancé. What are the odds, Daniel?" He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "Emma, I was a mess back then. I wasn't ready for what we had. I ran because I couldn't handle commitment. I regretted it. Every day, I felt tears sting my eyes, not from longing, but from anger. You don't get to rewrite the past." I said. "You broke me, Daniel. You left me without even the decency of goodbye." He flinched, but before he could respond, Lily returned, smiling between us. "Everything okay here?" Daniel straightened, his mask slipping back on. "Perfect." And just like that, the conversation ended, but the storm inside me didn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his words echoing in my head. "I didn't know she was your sister. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe it was an accident, a cruel coincidence. But then again, he had always been good at half-dashed truths. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old shoebox from the back of my closet, the one filled with memories I swore I'd buried for good. Inside were letters, photos, small keepsakes from our time together, and among them, a photograph of me and Daniel at my parents' old house. During my birthday dinner, Lily had been there that night too. She was 19, laughing in the background, holding a slice of cake. He'd met her before. The realization hit me like ice water. He had seen her years ago. He knew exactly who she was. So why lie? I carried that secret for days, my mind spinning between disbelief and dread. At work, my students' laughter sounded distant. At home, even my favorite tea tasted bitter. Lily kept texting about wedding preparations, cake tasting, dress fittings, color themes, and each message felt like another weight pressing down on my chest. Finally, one evening, I went to Mom's house to help her sort through old family albums for the wedding slideshow. She sat at the dining table, surrounded by stacks of photos. "Oh, look at this one," she said, handing me a faded print. "Lily's college graduation. You were so proud of her that day." I smiled faintly, flipping through the pile, until one photo made my hand stop. It was from that same birthday dinner years ago. Me, Daniel, and Lily all in one frame. His arm was around my shoulders, and Lily was right beside us. I felt my throat tighten. "Mom, where did you find this?" She looked up. "That old box from the attic." "What?" I quickly slid the photo under another stack. "Nothing. Just surprised you still had it." My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. He knew. He'd known from the start who Lily was and still chose her. But why? That night, I sat alone in my car outside their apartment building, hands trembling around the steering wheel. Through the window, I could see the faint glow of their living room light. Lily's laughter floated through the open window light, carefree. And him, sitting beside her, smiling, as if the past had never existed. I thought about walking in, telling her everything right then and there. But the image of her joy stopped me. She had always looked up to me, trusted me, leaned on me. If I told her now, would she believe me? Or would it sound like bitterness, jealousy, revenge? I couldn't bear the thought of her seeing me as the villain, so I drove away. But deep down, I knew this secret wouldn't stay buried for long. Because when the truth decides to surface, it never asks for permission. 2 weeks later, the invitations arrived. Elegant white envelopes sealed with gold wax, Daniel and Lily, in delicate cursive. I held mine in trembling fingers, tracing the embossed letters. It should have felt joyful. Instead, it felt like a cruel joke. The wedding was 3 months away. 3 months until I'd have to stand beside my sister, watching her vow her forever to the man who once promised me mine. The days blurred together after that. I tried to keep my distance, said I was busy with work, that I'd help later, but Lily wouldn't hear it. "You're my sister," she said, hugging me tightly. "You have to be there through everything." So I forced a smile and said I wouldn't miss it for the world. Inside, though, something inside me was splintering. One evening, she asked me to come wedding dress shopping. I hesitated, then agreed. We met at a boutique downtown, all soft lighting and champagne-colored walls. When Lily stepped out of the fitting room in her gown, she looked radiant, innocent, glowing, full of dreams. My heart ached watching her twirl before the mirror. "Do you think Daniel will like it?" she asked. Cheeks flushed. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "He'd be a fool not to." She smiled, turning back to admire herself. "He's been so supportive lately. I think he really wants to make this work." That word, work, lingered. I couldn't help it. "Has he ever told you much about his past relationships?" She shrugged. "Not really. He said he was in a serious one years ago, but it ended badly." I didn't want to pry. Everyone deserves a fresh start, right? I forced a nod, right? But her answer replayed in my mind long after we left the boutique. "He said it ended badly." For me, it hadn't just ended badly, it had ended in betrayal. I remember the day Daniel walked out of my life as vividly as I remembered the day he walked into it. 3 years ago, I came home early from work to surprise him. The apartment smelled faintly of his cologne, cedar and something sweet, and I heard music playing softly in the background. Then I saw them, Daniel, with another woman, laughing as if I'd never existed. He didn't even try to explain. He just stood there, silent, guilt written all over his face. And I left without looking back. Now, watching him beside my sister, smiling as though none of it had ever happened, felt unbearable. One night, about a month before the wedding, I stopped by Lily's place unannounced. She had texted earlier saying Daniel was out with friends, and she was spending the evening baking cookies, her way of calming pre-wedding nerves. When I arrived, she was in the kitchen, humming softly, flour dusting her apron. "Hey," she said cheerfully, "you're just in time to help me burn the next batch." I laughed lightly, grateful for the warmth in her tone. We talked, sifted flour, joked about childhood memories. For a while, I almost forgot. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. "Can you read that for me?" she asked, hands covered in dough. I picked it up. The message preview stopped my breath. "I'll be late. Stuck with a friend, you remember, Anna. She's going through something." Anna. That name sent a chill through me, because Anna had been the woman I'd caught him with 3 years ago. I felt the blood drain from my face. Lily noticed immediately. "Everything okay?" I blinked quickly, forcing composure. "Yep, yeah, just a work message that popped up after his..." I set her phone back down, careful not to let my hands shake. But inside, I was trembling. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The coincidence, the lie, the way he still used the same names, the same patterns. Part of me needed to be wrong. I wanted to be wrong. So the next evening, I drove past the restaurant Daniel had mentioned before, the place where he said he was meeting that friend. And there he was, sitting at the far corner table, candlelight flickering across his face, and across from him, a woman I instantly recognized. Anna. My stomach dropped. They were laughing. Her hand brushed his, and when she leaned closer, I saw the same smile he once gave me, the one that had made me believe in him. He wasn't just lying to Lily. He was repeating the same story, the same betrayal, all over again. I stood there for a long time, my body heavy, my heart numb. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, Lily called, her voice light and cheerful. Daniel said he ran into an old friend last night. Isn't that sweet? He said she was crying and he just wanted to make sure she was okay. I couldn't hold back the bitterness in my voice. He told you that? Yeah, she said, confused. Why? I hesitated. My throat burned with words I didn't know how to release. Nothing, just be careful, Lily, please. There was a pause. You're starting to sound like Mom, she teased softly. Always worrying. If only she knew. 2 days later, I received a message that would shatter whatever hope I had left. It was from Anna. I hadn't heard from her since that night years ago. Her message was short. Emma, I didn't know who he was seeing now. I'm sorry you had to see us. He said you were out of the picture. He lied to me too. I sat on my bed, clutching my phone, feeling the world tilt sideways. So it wasn't just history repeating. It was his pattern. That's when I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had promised myself I wouldn't destroy my sister's happiness, but this wasn't about jealousy anymore. It was about protecting her from a man who built his life on lies. I took a deep breath, wiped my tears, and called her. Lily, I said softly, can we meet tomorrow? There's something I need to tell you. Something about Daniel. Her voice brightened, unaware of the storm waiting to break. Of course. Lunch at the cafe? Yeah, I whispered. The cafe will be fine. I hung up and sat in silence, the ticking of the wall clock filling the room. Tomorrow, everything would change. For her, for me, for all of us. The next day felt like walking toward a slow, inevitable storm. The cafe was warm and sunlit, full of quiet chatter and the smell of roasted coffee beans. But inside me, there was only cold dread. Lily waved from a corner table, smiling, her phone beside a half-finished cappuccino. She looked happy, that light, carefree happiness only people in love seem to carry. And it broke something in me. I slid into the seat across from her. Hey, I said softly. Hey, you. She smiled. You look like you didn't sleep. I managed to laugh. I didn't work. I shook my head. My hands were trembling. I wrapped them around my cup just to keep still. There's something I need to tell you, I began. She blinked. Okay, what's wrong? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. How do you destroy your sister's world in a single breath? How do you look into her eyes, the same eyes you've loved since childhood, and tell her the man she's about to marry once broke you into pieces? I took a deep breath. It's about Daniel. Her smile faltered. What about him? I forced myself to meet her gaze. I know him, Lily. I knew him before you did. Her eyebrows knitted together. What do you mean, knew him? My throat tightened. He's my ex. We were together 3 years ago. It ended badly. He cheated on me with someone named Anna. Her face went still, pale, unreadable. For a few seconds, she didn't say anything, just blinked as if trying to wake herself up from a dream. Then she laughed softly, nervously. No, that can't be right. Daniel told me his ex's name was Emily. Maybe you're thinking of someone else. I wish I was, I whispered. But it's him. I saw him with Anna 2 nights ago, at the same restaurant he used to take me to. Her laughter died. You saw them? I nodded slowly. She leaned back, crossing her arms, shaking her head. No, he wouldn't. He's not like that anymore. He's changed. Her words sliced through me, not because she said them, but because I once believed them too. People don't change that easily, Lily, I said gently. They just get better at hiding who they are. Tears welled in her eyes. Why are you doing this? Are you jealous? The word hit like a slap. Jealous, I repeated, stunned. Lily, I'm trying to protect you. She pushed back her chair abruptly, her voice trembling. You had years to move on, Emma. Why now? Why, the week before my bridal shower? Why would you bring this up now unless you wanted to ruin it? I felt my own tears rising, because I didn't want to believe it until I saw it again with my own eyes. I didn't want to hurt you. But if I stayed silent, you'd be marrying a liar. For a long, suffocating minute, neither of us spoke. The cafe noise faded into background static. Just the faint clinking of cups, the hum of a coffee machine, and the pounding of my heart. Finally, Lily stood up, clutching her bag. I need to think. Please, I whispered. Just talk to him. Ask him about Anna. Watch his face when you do. She hesitated, her eyes red, her voice low. If you're wrong, Emma, you'll destroy what's left of us. Then she left and I sat there, trembling, the cold coffee untouched before me. That evening, I couldn't focus on anything. Every sound, every shadow felt heavy. I kept glancing at my phone, hoping for a call, a message, something. Around 9 p.m., my phone finally buzzed. It was Lily. He came over. I asked him. He said, you're lying, that you're bitter and jealous. but you can't stand seeing me happy. I stared at the screen in disbelief. He showed me messages between him and Anna. She's married now, apparently. He said, you must have misunderstood. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I couldn't bring myself to type. I don't know what to believe, she added. Please, just stop. Let me handle my relationship. Then silence. I set the phone down, tears spilling over. I had tried to do the right thing, but maybe the truth had come too late. Or maybe love had blinded her the way it once blinded me. 3 days later, the family gathered at my parents' house for the bridal shower. I hadn't planned on going, but Mom called that morning, insisting, it's your sister's big day, Emma. Don't let whatever's going on between you ruin it. So I went. When I arrived, the house was full of laughter, flowers, pastel decorations. Lily stood in the center of the living room, radiant in a peach dress. Daniel was beside her smiling, his hand on her back. Our eyes met. He froze just for a second, but it was enough. That flicker of recognition, that panic in his eyes. He knew. I'd told her. And then he smiled that same charming, calculated smile. Emma, he said smoothly, so glad you could make it. His tone was perfect, casual, polite. But beneath it, I could feel the tension. Wouldn't miss it, I replied. My voice calm, though my heart was racing. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. I told her everything. She knows about our past. I told her how you've always had trouble letting go. I clenched my jaw. You really haven't changed, have you? He smiled wider. People remember what they want to remember. Before I could respond, Lily called out, come on everyone, group photo. I stood beside her, smiling for the camera, my face calm, my heart shattering. That night, after the party, I got a message. It was from an unknown number. You don't know me, but I'm Anna's friend. She told me to reach out. You were right about Daniel. He's been lying to both of you. She found out he's been texting another woman. Even now, my pulse raced. Attached was a screenshot Daniel's messages to someone named Sophie. Flirtatious, recent, undeniable. For a long moment, I stared at the screen. Every emotion, anger, relief, sorrow, flooding in all at once. I forwarded the screenshot to Lily without a word. Minutes later, the message showed read. Then, nothing. Then, after what felt like an hour, she replied, can you come over? I grabbed my keys, heart pounding. When I reached her place, the lights were on. She was sitting on the couch, phone in hand. Mascara streaked across her cheeks. She looked up at me, her voice small. He denied it again, until I called the number. I sat beside her in silence. She laughed, a hollow, trembling sound. He hung up on me. Emma, the man I was going to marry, hung up on me. I reached out and held her hand. I'm so sorry. She broke then, sobbing into my shoulder, her whole body shaking. All I could do was hold her, just like I used to when we were little and she scraped her knee. Only this wound was much deeper. When she finally stopped crying, she whispered, you were right. I didn't say I told you so. I just held her tighter, because sometimes the truth doesn't need to be spoken, it just needs to be survived. The following morning, the sun rose quietly over the city, but in Lily's apartment, everything felt still and heavy. Her engagement ring lay on the table, beside an untouched cup of tea. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of things that could have been. Of love misplaced, of trust shattered. I called off the wedding, she said finally. Her voice was calm, steady, too steady. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. She looked at me with swollen eyes. Mom's furious. Dad's confused. Everyone keeps asking what happened, and I don't know what to tell them. Tell them the truth, I said softly. She shook her head. The truth hurts everyone, Emma. It makes them pick sides. It makes them look at me like I failed. You didn't fail? I whispered. You were honest. You walked away. She gave a weak smile. You make it sound brave. It doesn't feel brave. It feels like my whole future just disappeared overnight. Her words cut deep. Not because they blamed me, but because they didn't. I could see how much she'd loved him. How much she'd wanted it all to work. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, I said. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner. For the first time in weeks, I felt like my sister was back, not the version that love had blinded, but the one who knew me, trusted me, laughed with me. That afternoon, word spread through the family like wildfire. The wedding was off. My phone buzzed with calls. Mom, Aunt Maria, even Dad, each one demanding an explanation. Emma, what happened? Mom's voice crackled through the line. Lily said she caught Daniel cheating. But why was your name in the middle of it? I took a deep breath, because I knew him before she did. He was my ex. The silence on the other end was sharp. Then, you should have told us earlier. I didn't know how. I whispered. Mom sighed, long, tired. Families are supposed to talk. Emma. Secrets only cause pain. She wasn't wrong. But sometimes, silence feels safer until it explodes. By evening, social media had caught the scent. Lily's friends started posting cryptic stories. Some people never change. Better no wedding than a bad marriage. Someone leaked a photo from the bridal shower, Lily smiling beside Daniel. The ring shining on her finger captioned, "This didn't age well." Within hours, the gossip spiraled. Comments, DMIs, sympathy messages, and beneath them all, whispers about me, the sister who warned her, the ex who caused the breakup, the drama nobody could stop watching. For a brief, awful moment, I felt like the villain in someone else's love story. A few days later, Lily asked me to go out with her. "I need air," she said. We walked to the park, the same one we used to visit as kids, chasing pigeons and arguing about who'd get the last ice cream. The leaves were turning amber, falling softly around us. "I keep replaying everything in my head," she said quietly. "The dinners, the late night calls, the way he used to. Ook at me. How could it all be fake?" "It wasn't all fake," I said. "He probably did love you, just not the way you deserved." She smiled faintly. "That's a kind way of putting it." "I mean it," I said. Some people confuse love with control, or comfort, or fear of being alone. But love? Real love doesn't make you question yourself every day. She looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "You sound like someone who's finally healed." I laughed softly. "Maybe, or maybe I'm just tired of letting broken people define my worth." She squeezed my hand. "You saved me, you know." I shook my head. "No, you saved yourself. I just showed you where the cracks were." Weeks passed, the noise died down. The whispers faded. Daniel moved out of the city, at least that's what we heard. Lily went back to work, slower, quieter, but stronger. Dot and I finally breathed. For the first time in years, I wasn't haunted by him. I wasn't defined by what he did or didn't do. The ghost of that relationship had finally dissolved, leaving space for peace. One Sunday morning, as I sat by the window sipping coffee, Lily called. "You busy?" she asked. "Not really. Come over. I'm cooking pancakes." I smiled. "That's my line." "Yeah, well," she said, laughing. "I'm stealing it." When I arrived, the kitchen was filled with the smell of butter and syrup. She stood by the stove, hair messy, humming to herself, alive again. As we ate, she looked at me and said, "Do you ever think maybe all this had to happen?" Maybe. We both needed to see who we really were when everything fell apart. I thought about pain and love, and how sometimes losing everything is the only way to rebuild. "Yeah," I said finally. Maybe it was the only way to come back home. That evening, I uploaded a new post on my small writing blog, something I hadn't done in months. It read, "Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free right away. Sometimes it breaks everything first, so you can finally breathe again in the ruins." Within an hour, comments started pouring in, strangers sharing their own stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and healing. And I realized something simple, but profound, that our pain, when spoken, becomes someone else's strength. Maybe that's what family really is. Not people who never hurt each other, but people who stand together when the hurt is done. Weeks later, on Lily's birthday, she opened a small box I'd left on our kitchen table. Inside was a silver locket with 2 tiny photos, one of us as kids, grinning with missing teeth, and one from that morning at breakfast, smiling over pancakes. On the back, I had engraved just 2 words. "Still here." She hugged me tight. "Always. Always," I whispered. That was the day I realized this story wasn't about betrayal. It was about survival. It was about 2 sisters learning that love, the real kind, doesn't come from promises, it comes from presence. And even when the world breaks your heart, the right people help you gather the pieces and teach you how to start again. The end.